Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop. All the news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's the host.
Good evening. Welcome to Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Lindsey Davis Stover. And tonight we're going to be talking about the important issue of affordable housing here in Fairfax County. And I am thrilled to have on the show this evening Kofi Annan, who is president of the Fairfax County NAACP, and Jerry Poje, who is a member of the NAACP here in Fairfax County and a member of the Housing Committee. Thank you both for being with us tonight.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, as we know, Fairfax County is changing rapidly. We went from being a bedroom community to Washington, D.C., now to becoming more urban. And affordable housing is a critical need in our county. Yep. Can you speak to a little bit, Kofi, about the history of affordable housing?
Sure. Well, thanks again for the opportunity to be here and to speak about this very important topic. Like you said, our county has changed a lot over the last few years. Over the last 30 years, we've added about 400,000 new members or residents of the county. And so we have gone from being a lot of rural areas to suburban and really even, just straight up urban, areas in our county right now. And so the problem with that is that now we're basically running out of affordable housing. We're running out of places to build, and we're almost out of places to build pretty much. And so we've created a situation where the supply and demand has really just driven the prices and the cost of housing, and to rent prices are gone up considerably. And so now we're caught in a situation where people who are like our teachers and first responders and so forth, they really don't have a place to live, and so they're having to move further and further outside of the county in order to find a decent place where they can afford. The reason why the NAACP cares so much about it really is because about half of about 50% of the African Americans in the county don't make enough money to live comfortably. They make about $70-something thousand per year, the households. Also, about 50% of the homeless people in Fairfax County are African Americans as well. And so this is a broader issue that affects everyone, but it disproportionately affects the African American community and people of color in general. So that's why we kind of make sure that we're trying to lead this fight.
That's great. Thank you, both of you, for your efforts in this area. Traditionally, what has been the barriers to planning for and building affordable housing units in our county?
Well, I mean, we have a lot of knowledge about this problem. We grew up as a community in the early years to think of a bedroom community with single-family dwelling, and that was built pretty much with a prejudicial attitude that it was going to be primarily for white people. Now we find ourselves in this robust economy where we are one of the engines of the greater Washington area, and we have so much diversity that has come into our county that we now need to shift our mental map for how we should house everybody. And this means everybody in the community. So we're talking from an NAACP perspective about the poorest of the poor, which are disproportionately people of color. For the working class people who are making less than $50,000 per year, but doing essential services for us all, and those who are aspiring to be at a high level of government worker, either a policeman, a fireman, a school teacher, but who are being costed out of the housing market by the rapid rise in land cost and the rapid rise in construction costs.
Absolutely. And Kofi, you touched on this a little bit. The rents are increasing.
Right.
It's getting harder and harder to buy homes here in Fairfax County.
Right.
But yet the wages are staying the same.
Exactly.
Can you talk a little bit about that struggle and the fact that so many people who work in Fairfax County aren't able to live in Fairfax County?
Yeah. So, for example, when it comes to teachers, nurses, and police officers, they all start off about $50,000. So they would all have to work, so anywhere from 5 to 10 years just to be able to afford a comfortable, place to live. And so the average rent is about $1,700 just for a two-bedroom apartment. And so if you know, and minimum wage, we all are familiar with the struggle for the fight for 15, and we know that the minimum wage here in Virginia is still $7.25 an hour.
Right.
And so you take all these things into consideration. What ends up happening is that people end up having to move to places like Manassas or Prince William County or even further, and so just to work here in the county. So we want to make sure that our county prioritizes affordable housing so that people don't have to struggle to find places to live here in the county, that they can actually live and work in the communities in Fairfax County for going forward.
Absolutely, and you brought up minimum wage. I think too, when we think about housing, we have to think about it in a holistic way.
Right.
Housing really sets the foundation for so many things in our community, and that stability in housing really affects the way families are able to raise their kids, able to keep a job. Can you talk a little bit about the importance for a county to really focus in on stability when it comes to housing?
Yeah, well, so, and I'll give myself as a personal example, right? So I grew up, pretty poor, and so we had to move around quite a bit because we couldn't find a decent place to live. And I grew up in D.C. and the similar situation there, right, as far as the cost of living. And so I ended up probably moving like about 5 or 6 times between junior high and middle school and high school, and that was really disruptive because now you're always starting over fresh. And so a lot of low-income families are caught up in that situation where they have to keep bouncing around, and then so the students have to keep starting over, and each time they're being set back. And so housing really is a pillar for stability for families in general. And so, from my own personal experience, I could definitely attest to that.
Absolutely.
If I could add to that,
Please,
the
Jerry.
Department of Housing and Urban Development would tell us all that if you're paying more than 30% of your wages on housing, you're housing burdened, which means you're stealing away from child education advantages, you're stealing away from investments in your own nest egg to perhaps get a permanent place, you're stealing away from healthcare costs, you're burdening yourself and you're diminishing your life's capacity by the very cost of your housing. We estimate right now that if a family of 4 wanted to rent in Fairfax County at an average of almost $1,800 per month, they would need to earn as a family $70,000 per year.
Wow.
The most rapid increasing jobs in Fairfax County are coming in at less than 50,000. And that means we're closing people out from even the rental market, let alone the nest egg of a starter home that will allow you to build enough capacity that your child can get college education and you can live to a retirement. This is a challenge for a whole community. It's not just for the one family, it's for all of us to believe that we can do much better. Other communities are starting to do much better, and we've got to start to up the pace within Fairfax County to meet that challenge.
Sure, and Jerry, you mentioned the average rent in Fairfax County is $1,500 a month?
17.
No, we're at 17,
Yeah.
almost $1,800
Wow.
per month, which is
$1,800.
extraordinary. And,
Right.
an average retail worker in Fairfax County, how many of us throughout our day are engaging a retail worker? Somebody giving us the prescription on the other side of the counter at the local drugstore. Somebody who's giving us our dry cleaning. Somebody who's just given us a meal for lunch. Somebody who's been in our healthcare department and giving us the background medical that we need. These are people who are working at much lower rates, pay rates, that the housing affordability demands, and they're closing out. If we put them on the road coming from far distances to do that work, we're going to have a snowstorm the next couple of days. Are they going to be able to be there for us? We have to think better as a whole community, and we have to house everybody who does essential services for us in the same community where we live. It's building a whole community.
Yeah,
It
and
is.
I could also add too. This isn't just a moral imperative. Like some of the points that Jerry raised. This is also an economic imperative because if companies can't find people to work in these jobs, then they're going to have to start moving elsewhere as well, right? So it also makes it a challenge for companies to find people who can work these jobs that are some of the lower paying jobs as well. So.
Absolutely, and we know we've got a world-class education system here in Fairfax County, but we also need to have the housing available to attract new companies and additional economic development. I think that's a great point. And as you mentioned, housing is a pillar to ensuring that families can be successful in our county. And I want to ask you, how do you think the county is doing right now when it comes to planning for affordable housing and the continued growth that we know we're going to see here in Fairfax County?
Yeah, well, they definitely have a lot of little ways to go. They have made some strides with as far as efficiencies and things like that, but there's still estimated that we will need 15,000 additional units built over the next 10 years in order to kind of meet the demand. And there's no real actual plan in place to do that right now. Between 2011 and over the last like six or so years, we've only built about a couple hundred of additional affordable housing units, and we need to get into the thousands just to keep pace with the additional growth.
Wow.
So the plan as it currently is just isn't keeping up to the increasing demand.
So we've got to be able to reach 15,000 additional units just in the next 10 years.
Correct.
That's to meeting the coming demand. We know we already have a deficit of 31,000 affordable rental units, so we're both in the need to make up for lost time and to prepare for the coming wave of next jobs in our area to build the housing that's going to be needed for all those essential employees. Other communities have gotten ahead of the game from us. We need to start running as fast as we can just to keep up with them. We have some very good models that the county has invested in, but we haven't expanded upon those models to meet the real need.
Well, good.
Yeah.
So not only do we need to make up for some lost time here, but we also need to plan for the future we know is coming.
Right.
And after the break, we're going to talk a little bit more about what the future of housing looks like here in Fairfax County. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Okay, so we drowned the fire, stirred it, drowned it again, and now just feel if it's cold.
Yeah.
Cool.
Smokey just gave me a bear hug.
I know. Already posted it.
I got a creak in my neck, limp in my step, cramping in my muscles every time I try to flex. But I don't wanna get on. Very inside no more love. All that I could do was remember you. You know I usually say no, but if you throw me love, I'll throw you some more.
It's a big responsibility.
Oh, it's huge. I know, it's huge.
And the salary.
Oh my god, yes. I
Right?
mean, like, I was about to move in with my parents, and right before, so this saved me.
I really believe in you, you know?
Thank you. It's nice to hear that from someone.
These are cool. Did you, what did you?
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Lindsey Davis Stover, and we are going to continue our conversation about affordable housing here in Fairfax County. Again with us this evening, we have Kofi Annan, who is the president of Fairfax County NAACP, and Jerry Poje, who is a housing committee member of the NAACP chapter here in Fairfax. Thank you again for joining us, and we're going to continue this important conversation. We left the first segment talking about the initiatives the county could take to better plan for affordable housing, and we're really going to work to dive into those during this segment. And one of the things we've seen at the county level is the supervisors coming together with the school board members to put together a One Fairfax policy. Kofi, can you talk a little bit about One Fairfax and how it adequately or inadequately addresses the issue of housing?
Well, so we believe the One Fairfax policy sets a great framework for how to make sure that equity is part of every discussion with regard to county policies, budgets, you name it. With regards to housing, it basically says that we need to make sure that there's housing for all, and that people, we maintain a diverse community by making sure that there's adequate housing for everyone from different backgrounds, different economic levels, and things like that. Where it comes short is that the budget priorities don't always mesh up with the policy of One Fairfax. And this housing policy is just one of those instances where we don't feel like the county is putting the money where the money is, where their mouth is, basically. So, for instance, the penny fund is one of those areas where they during the recession, they basically cut the penny fund in half. It was used to fund to subsidize private sector so that they could continue to help build affordable housing. They cut that fund in half back in 2009, I believe, and we're urging them to restore that back to a full penny at this point. So this is one of the areas where the county could actually make sure that the One Fairfax policy is being fulfilled. And so, yeah, we feel like it's a good policy, but we also have to back it up.
So it sounds like it provides a good framework, a good place to start.
It's a good place to start.
But the budget does need to reflect that it's a priority here in our county.
Correct.
Yeah, it's a great place to start, but it is going to be the test of how serious we are in dealing with social and racial equity in Fairfax County. If we're going to build the next generation of Fairfaxians who really have a more beloved idea of everybody of all economies living and working in the same community, we're going to have to up the ante on how we fund that. Now, as Kofi said, we have cut in half what is a penny's worth of affordable housing funding to close the gap between market rate costs and affordability costs. And currently, we know that if you just turned it over to the market rate developers, they're going to develop only the highest end housing. And we saw in the rail to Dulles, going through the Tyson's Corner, huge buildings that are all luxury condos. Right. Now that's terrific for the people who can afford all luxury condos, but the people who live in those all luxury condos, they want to have doctors who are supported by receptionists. They want to have dentists who are supported by people who do cleaning jobs. They want to have carpenters and plumbers who keep their apartments in fair order. They want to have access to hairdressers, to people who do dry cleaning. All those jobs are essential for supporting those who aspire to live in luxury condos. If we don't build the housing for all the other people, where do we think we're going to have a lifestyle that sounds so fantastic that it's all luxury? All luxury comes because we have so many others who don't live all luxury lifestyles but can live very important productive lives and raise families because they're doing essential services for our community.
Absolutely, and when everybody in our community and our county thrives, we all thrive as a county, and I think that's an important piece that should be kept in mind when our elected officials are making important decisions. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that because this One Fairfax policy is a joint effort with the school board and the supervisors, the county supervisors. In your opinion, do you think our elected leaders are putting affordable housing, are they making it a priority? Are they putting an emphasis on the need to plan for these 15,000 additional units that we would need in the next 10 years? You want to start out, Kofi?
So I don't think they're doing enough. I don't, again, going back to the petty fund and
Right.
the efforts to partner with private companies in order to maintain, we continue to build affordable housing. No, I don't necessarily think they're doing enough as much as they can. So it's hard to say it's a priority if they aren't putting the money there. So.
Yes, absolutely.
So I can give you a personal example.
Sure, Jerry.
I just completed my last week with my faith community and 4 other faith communities in doing 1 week's worth of hypothermia sheltering, where 40 people who are currently homeless would come into our community. We'd give them a wonderful meal, a safe place to sleep, but we'd send them off in the morning. I met people who I met 14 years ago this past week. That means we're not doing the job that needs to be done. Fairfax County invested in a 10-year plan to end and prevent homelessness. That plan began in 2008, and it was 10 years, was 2018. We just had a major report last week saying that we met 50% goals in that ending, preventing homelessness. Now, when I went to grade school, if I got a 50% on my grade, I would say I got an F. And
absolutely. It's not a grade you'd want to take home, right?
Many good things happened in the pursuit of that, but to have 50% looming at us is a challenge that says we've got to step up. We cannot do what we've done in the past. We've got to meet more urgent priorities more quickly. And we need a generation of political leadership at the boards of supervisors and at the school board and at the hired county staff who are really going to say, let's do it, and let's do it more quickly than we've done.
Right. Leaders that can have the courage to act on conviction. That's
Yeah,
what it sounds like.
Just to add to that, there are about 1,000 people, homeless people, estimated in Fairfax County right now. So it's not as much as other areas, but it's still a big number.
Absolutely.
And so that we still need to look at that. There are about 5,000 disabled and elderly people on the waiting list, waiting for housing, and so these numbers are still pretty alarming.
Absolutely.
And so we still need to do better.
Person is one
Absolutely.
too many, right?
Right.
To play off on what Kofi just said, we opened for 1 week the Housing Choice Voucher wait list, anticipating that over the next 2 years we would be able to add 2,000 people into a Housing Choice Voucher program. With a 1 week opening, we received 12,000 applications for 2,000 positions over the next 2 years. That tells us the pressure is enormous in our community to get more housing so that many, many more people who are at risk could be more safely housed.
Wow, that's shocking numbers when you hear about it, which means so many people aren't even able to get on a wait list right now.
Right, and so there are also a lot of people who are pretty much just on the verge of becoming homeless that we don't even factor into these numbers that we have counted already. So there are a lot of people who are sleeping on someone's couch. There are, and there are people who are basically just one emergency away from becoming homeless.
Right.
And so there's the numbers that we do know, but then there's a much bigger number of people who are really just kind of teetering on the edge. And so we need to, as the housing prices go up, as the cost of living goes up, we need to think about these and really plan for it. Otherwise, there's a ballooning problem there that we just can't continue to just ignore.
That's right. That's right. And Jerry, you mentioned a little bit earlier that there are some counties around us that have taken steps to better plan for their future. What are some lessons learned from counties around us here in Fairfax as we could take forward?
So just over the border of the Potomac River is Montgomery County. Last year I went to their 27th county-wide meeting on affordability of housing. Every politician at the local level, at the state level, and at the federal level, 2 United States senators were in attendance in their affordable housing meeting for Montgomery County, talking about a very aggressive plan to expand the capacity in that community. We know other parts of the country where people are moving at very rapid rates, not just doing public financing, but building stronger public-private partnerships. Out in San Francisco, Kaiser Permanente has forged a partnership with Enterprise Community Housing that does low-income housing development, $100 million partnership to build greater capacity in the city of San Francisco. And it's because Kaiser Permanente can't pay people $100,000 doing all the jobs that need to be done as a healthcare provider. They know unless they begin to build the kind of housing stock, their business will fail. And we have to appreciate that all the businesses in Fairfax County have similar kinds of needs.
Right.
And we've got to forge stronger public-private partnerships to get things done.
So it sounds, not only do we need elected leaders who have the courage to act on conviction, but we also need some creativity.
Yep.
And find ways in which we can work with the private sector and community partners to come together. And that's what I love about what the work you're doing at the NAACP is you really are bringing community leaders, community organizations together around this topic and having these important conversations that we're having tonight so that we can educate people in our community as we move forward. And I know Arlington and other counties around us have done some pretty bold things. Is there one thing in particular you could point to from a neighboring county that we could take a look at?
So one of the things that we would all look towards, because so many other communities have done it, they have a dedicated funding stream for the affordability of housing. They've built much more robust housing trust funds that would allow us to close the gap between market rate and affordability rates for the housing. It takes some investment of the county to really get ahead of the game, and it takes the working with those private partners, with nonprofit developers to accelerate this process. They can do it, we can do it. We are a pretty bright county, we can do it.
We sure are, and we can take those lessons that other counties have learned and bring them here to Fairfax County. And we're about to head into a break, but when we return, we'll talk about policy initiatives we can look forward to here in Fairfax. Please stay with us.
I surrender, I surrender.
All right, pal. Get ready for the day, buddy.
Hey, Dad. Hey, Dad. Do we have a gun?
What's that?
Do we have a gun?
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made this vacation happen.
Double points with every purchase?
Cleverly merging promotions.
Love it.
Cross-referencing travel sites. And booking all your flights with those...
Vouchers. I got us bumped.
They were like, oh. But now they're like... Aloha. You aced this vacation. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
I tried Oxy at a couple of parties. I thought I had it under control. I didn't know it'd be this addictive. I didn't know how far I'd go to get more.
Opioid dependence can happen after just 5 days. Know the truth, spread the truth.
What to expect when you're expecting.
Like here.
A teenager.
Today, I'm going to show you how to teen-proof your home. First step, hide the car keys. Preferably somewhere they would never look. Challenges will come up. Be ready for them. Hi, honey.
I'm ready for the... Mom, you don't use mannequins in the mannequin challenge.
You don't have to know it all to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Lindsey Davis Stover, and we are continuing the conversation about affordable housing here in Fairfax County. And again, we're joined by Kofi Annan and Jerry Poje, both from the NAACP. Kofi is the president of the Fairfax chapter, and Jerry is on the Housing Committee. And Jerry, I'd love to kind of dive into the work that the Housing Committee does for the NAACP. And I know you have taken this issue and really brought some proposed policy changes that could be put forward to the county. Can you talk a little bit about that plan?
So it's a real blessing to be on the Housing Committee for NAACP because we brought in a lot of expertise to help build our capacity and to be on top of what's shaping the next generation of policies in our county. Currently, the Department of Housing and Community Development is being charged with developing a new county-wide strategic plan for affordable housing. And that means a plan that's very comprehensive. It's not just the county's supports, but it's what everybody else in the community needs to do. We've gone through a phase 1 process for that committee that has identified a whole bunch of policy shifts that could be made in relatively short order to enhance our capacity. Things that deal with our zoning ordinances. What are the ways that we could have increased density that would allow us to build more affordable units, particularly in areas where there can be high transportation opportunities, and we might not need to build huge garages for everybody. If we have a rail to Dulles going on right now and a more accelerated bus system in the Route 1 corridor, those are the places in which you can construct affordable units without having to do as much as you would in other parts of the county to provide accessory benefits. So those are some of the things that are underway. We have yet to develop and put in place an efficiency apartment ordinance that would allow us in a mixed building to have certain efficiency units. I grew up in New York City. When I graduated from college, that was where most of the college students aspired to live in New York City. You might have had a roommate in an efficiency apartment, but you had a place to live on your own, and you felt like you were on top of the world, ready to go conquer it as you went into your first job. We don't have those opportunities for our children graduating college in this county. I can only tell you the number that have graduated back to their childhood bedroom, and they and their parents wish for so much more, and we just haven't built that kind of stock. The second issue is going to be, how do we fund what needs to be done? And that's a big committee that's been established by the board called the Phase 2 Committee, which is going to come forward next month with a series of serious recommendations on funding the gap between market rate and affordable housing for the county. And the NAACP is working closely. We have members on that committee, but we're looking closely at how serious those recommendations will be. And if they're not sufficient, we're going to argue for more.
That's great. Now, there's basically 4 pillars, if you will, of the proposed policy changes that the Housing Committee has worked on. And I know we've talked a lot about the first one, too, just making sure that our elected leaders put an emphasis and make affordable housing a priority. Tell us a little bit how you're working with our elected officials right now on this issue.
So this is really crucial, right? Because we're about ready to go into the 2020 budget process for the county. We will propose the budget for the year 2020, but that's in formation. Tomorrow we're going to hear from Brian Hill, the county executive, about his proposal. That begins a process of discernment from the boards of supervisors and from the larger community about what are our priorities going to be. So NAACP is very much intrigued with what we will hear from Executive Brian Hill tomorrow, and then we're going to engage in the process. This is a most essential element that we're building capacity for within the NAACP to be fully represented in the budget hearings. But further beyond that, this is the most pivotal election year we've ever had in Fairfax County. Several of our sitting boards of supervisor members and school board members have decided they're not going to re-up for election. So there's new candidates all over the county seeking to aspire to new leadership, and we see it as part of our job to bring this issue to them, to listen to what they have to say about it, and to propose strengthening our county's process for affordable housing for all.
That's great. And I know we have a caller, Ken in Fairfax has called. And what is a way, Ken's asking, in which people can engage in this budget process? Because it is important. It's going to be unveiled tomorrow. How can our viewers engage in this process?
So one of the things that happens at the close of as has happened in the past, at the close of the presentation of the budget, each of the sitting members of the boards of supervisors and the chair of the board, Sharon Bolivar, will announce when they will host public meetings about the budget. And every magisterial district, my own in Hunter Mill, I already know when Supervisor Hudgens has called for her budget discussion on March 2nd. I intend to be there. I intend to invite friends to come to that. But every other part of the county will host a similar kind of meeting. And Kofi has been leading us to make sure every region is represented by people who are knowledgeable about the issue and who want to become more knowledgeable and raise their voices for those needs.
So Kofi, you will have someone from the NAACP at every listening session.
Well, so not only that, but so last year we actually hosted our own budget listening session, and it was actually the Brian Hill, executive director, said it was actually the most attended in the county.
That's great.
So we plan on doing that again this year as well.
That's
so
great.
We encourage, if you can't get to that meeting, go to the ones at other listening sessions. But we plan on being engaged throughout the process. So we'll issue a letter in response to the advertised budget. We'll try to host our own program, and we'll continue to engage directly behind the scenes as well.
That's great. And I assume that listening session information, when it's planned, will be on your website?
Right. It isn't scheduled yet, but it will be.
That's fantastic. Well, good. And I know you have proposed several other policy initiatives for elected leaders to really take a look at. And part of that is the funding piece. And I know we've talked a lot about putting your money where your mouth is, if you will. Can you speak to a little bit of what those incentives look like? We've talked about the penny fund. What are some other ways in which we can invest as a county?
So there are other options that we're exploring. Some other cities have developed their own bond funding for closing the gap for affordability of housing. Some states have done monumental work. State of Massachusetts has just approved in the past year a $1.8 billion housing bond fund that is going to make much more secure the city of Boston and every other municipal area in the state of Massachusetts to meet their challenge. We've yet to do that in the state of Virginia, but this is also going to be an election year for the state legislature, and you can depend upon the NAACP to be present with all of the elected Richmond delegates about the importance of this issue and becoming a fuller partner with Fairfax County in meeting these needs.
That's great. And we've talked a lot about what other areas have done, whether it's Massachusetts, San Francisco, even Arlington. Do you think that our county leaders are taking a look at what has been done across the country so that we can really take and use the lessons learned and apply them here in Fairfax?
I think we have, although I can only say, as part of the NAACP Housing Committee, when we hosted a week's worth of hypothermia sheltering, we also hosted 3 nights where after dinner we held a community forum at the shelter involving elected officials, senior staffing leaders in the county, as well as the guests and the volunteers helping in that shelter. And I detected a huge appetite for becoming more expert and wanting to follow innovative models that would meet the challenge. I've never detected a more open time for thinking about how we can do things better. And the NAACP is going to test the mettle of candidates as to whether they really want to be innovative and solve the problem. We only want the best for Fairfax County, and that has to include the best politicians ready to be bold and lead the county in this effort.
Absolutely.
And if I could also add, I mean, I know we've given some credit to Arlington and Alexandria, but we should also note that they've also lost about 80 to 90% of their affordable housing over the last few years. So they're trying to play catch up as well. And so some of those people are then having to move into Fairfax County and then now maybe having to move again. And so we just keep pushing all of the, the working class and poor people further and further out. And so we just need to be mindful of that.
Thank you for making that point, because it isn't just a Fairfax issue. It's a Northern Virginia issue.
It's a Northern Virginia issue,
and
correct.
we are
We're all
rapidly growing. You're right. We're all in this together.
No, and Kofi's correct. I mean, there are dual issues at play. One is, how do we preserve the existing affordable housing, and how do we grow the additional new housing that we've yet to meet? There are models already in operation around the county. The Department of Housing and Community Development, within its own building, has a whole series of efficiency apartments. Now, that model was developed in 1993. No other additional county building has expressed that model. And we have continuing capital improvement projects all over the county. We're going to be asking the questions, what more could be done within county building structures to really build a greater housing structure. One of the examples of Alexandria that I always point to, they built a new firehouse, but they built a firehouse with workforce and affordable housing above it. So not only could they better afford the workforce that would be doing the work from the firehouse, they had others on scene as well that could be affordably housed. Terrific model. We could do the same thing in Fairfax.
Absolutely, and it speaks to the creativity we hit on earlier, and that we must really demand right now from our elected leaders. And it's definitely something we should take a look at as we're looking at these candidates. We're going to break. Please join us when we return.
This is the story of a boy who was very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. It made him feel uncomfortable. One day, he found out he had something called autism. His family got him help, and slowly, he learned how to live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies.
Selfie, nailed it.
We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on man, let's split a ride home.
Being a dad is an adventure full of special moments.
A cruise! Surprise!
Unexpected moments.
I got this.
And even awkward moments.
Okay, Dad, thank you.
But every moment you spend with your kids, even the smallest moments, can make the biggest impact on your child's life. So take a moment to be a dad today.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Lindsey Davis Stover, and we're continuing our conversation about affordable housing with Kofi Annan, the president of the Fairfax chapter of the NAACP, and Jerry Poje, who is a member of the Housing Committee in the Fairfax County NAACP. And we ended the last segment talking about the proposed policy initiatives that the Housing Committee is really working hard on. And I want to talk a little bit more about one of those proposed initiatives, the one that really guarantees equity and access. Can you talk a little bit, Jerry, about what that would look like and how it would be done at a county level? Because I think that's so important given the history of this issue in our county.
So some of the things we're thinking in that direction that are really important and really are the basis of good governance is how would we build an accountability system into whatever we do next. So we don't currently have for Fairfax County a dashboard that would say in any one year what's our clear objectives for building the greater number of affordable units. From which budget lines are we going to be able to draw them from? How much from a federal funding stream? How much from a state stream? How much from a county stream? And who are the people being served by those units? That would allow us to keep a better track record of the county's accomplishments, but also of the looming needs that have yet to be met. And it would drive us forward in a more innovative way towards accelerating the process of getting housing for everyone. I mean, if you thought about it, there are elderly people on fixed income, right? We know that their fixed income doesn't rise at the rate that their rental demands may be having. And unless we build a better senior living situation, we're going to be in the horrific position of evicting seniors out of the homes they're living in. NAACP doesn't want to be part of any county that treats so callously those elders amongst us. And then we know there are people who have had mental health challenges. Those are people who need special wraparound services in addition to the housing. So we want to make sure they are also being best met. That may come through different kinds of budgets lines, and unless we have kind of a county-wide dashboard of achievements and needs, we're not going to be able to raise our voices as articulately in meeting the needs of those special populations. And we're in it for the long haul. The problem didn't happen last year. It's been happening because we haven't acted for decades in the way we should have. So we're going to have to be here for decades as an NAACP and Housing Committee wanting to track performance and to lift our voices and organize the community to lift their voices to meet this challenge. We're happy to do it. In fact, we're excited because we think we're going to build a more beloved Fairfax County by doing it. And boy, there's new energy here that I just am so excited about.
It is exciting time. And it does feel like it is a time for change, and people are ready for that change. And I think part of what we're doing tonight is just really scratching the surface of this complex issue. And thank you both for your leadership on this issue. I agree, it's hard to fix problems that you aren't tracking and you aren't measuring, and having your housing committee and the NAACP in this county really monitoring that, I think is going to be incredibly important as the county shapes future plans moving forward, and clearly has to make up for some adequacies as well.
So Kofi, he doesn't want us to be slow in anything. He's helped us lead
That's why he's a good leader, right?
A major community meeting coming up next month. Say something
That's
about
great.
that.
Yes, please tell us a little bit about the community meeting, because I think as viewers, are watching this show, and as this topic becomes more a part of our everyday conversation, as it should, I think the natural next question is, one, where do we learn more about this issue, and how can we get involved? So can you talk a little bit about what you're planning this month, or next month, I guess?
Right. So we're just getting really into this issue. The Housing Committee is fairly new. But it's done tremendous work raising and elevating this topic, of discussion. And so we're trying to make sure that we play a stronger role in shaping the discussions and shaping the policies going forward. And so Jerry and Mary Patton, they've really kind of taken the lead on this issue and really taking the bull by the horn. So
that's
really
great.
Commend them for the great work they have been doing. So one of the follow-ons that we've decided to do was to have a community forum next month, March 14th, at First Baptist Church of Vienna. And we're going to have a panel discussion there, and we'll have like over 25 different other organizations have chosen to co-sponsor this forum with us. And so it's really demonstrated just that there's a great appetite for affordable housing, and we're really hoping to use this as an opportunity to let our elected officials know, and those running for office, that this is an issue that they have to tackle and have to do a better job addressing going forward. So it's really looking forward to that opportunity.
That's great. So it's March 14th.
March 14th.
And what time does it start?
7 p.m.
7 p.m.
So it's being hosted at First Baptist Church of Vienna. That's a 151-year-old Black Baptist community that emerged right out of the Civil War. And it's been such a central pillar within my community. I live in Vienna, and so rich in growing greater capacity to appreciate, understand, and embrace our diversity. But the challenges for First Baptists are land values have increased so much that there is a urgency for people in their family circumstances to sell the land that their great-great-grandparents had purchased so many years ago. And what happens is the smaller house is torn down and a $1.5 million McMansion is being built. So we are losing the richness of our culture as we fail to appreciate the need for us to have affordable housing for all the people in the community. And Pastor Walton, who is going to lead the charge that evening, he is real dynamo in trying to get us to engage everybody in it. We're also going to have one of the leaders from one of the largest national organizations that's doing nonprofit development, David Bowers from Community Enterprises. Great. We're also going to have the chair of the Boards of Supervisors Housing and Human Services Committee, Supervisor Kathy Hudgens, be one of our speakers. We're really proud that these folks have leapt into the leadership roles for this meeting. And then we're going to have community representatives who are part of that very low-income, currently homeless population, aspiring not to be there forever. Some of the people working 2 or 3 jobs, doing essential services for our community. And then the people who are our average workforce in either the school system, the public safety system, or in other kinds of jobs that all of us would recognize as essential. We want those voices to be present, and we can hold 500 people in that church. I'm hoping we have to have overflow into the church hall to hear what everybody's saying.
That's great. And I think you hit on such an important point, too. I mean, this forum is also going to be an opportunity to hear from people and really hear firsthand the challenges and the struggles that families are having to have the stability in housing that every family needs and deserves. And I think that's an incredible and unique perspective to bring to this meeting.
Right, and so this is, I should also mention, this is actually our second community forum on housing. We had one in the fall. We had about a little over 100 people there at Bethlehem Baptist in South County. In South County. And so we're building on it with this one, and we actually hope to make this a series of discussions to continue the drumbeat, to continue to raise awareness and let people know what's happening. And you know, Jerry raised a point that this isn't just about dollars and cents. This is about the culture of our community and what type of community do we really want to have. Do we really just want to have it look where it's just all white people or all rich people, or, you know, we need to, if we are going to continue to appreciate the diversity that we have in our county, we have to actually take steps to do that. And this is probably the most important way to make sure that we make sure that the culture and the communities remains diverse.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. I think it's incredible, your ability to bring everybody together across the county. And I know you mentioned over 30 community organizations will be represented at this meeting.
Right.
What are just a few of those organizations that you all have been able to pull together to make this a rich conversation?
I know the Poor People's Campaign is one of them, the Coalition for 100 Black Women, Alpha Phi Alpha, a couple other Greek fraternities and sororities. Losing a blank right now, but
we have a wealth of nonprofit human service providers. We have people. We have the Campaign for Housing and Community Engagement that does a statewide advocacy around the affordability of housing issues. So we have people at the state level, we have people at the local level, we have those that represent lower income people, we have faith communities have joined into this. So we're seeing the energy coming towards us, and we're hoping that each of these meetings helps to build a more inspired and a harder working community, make sure all the voices are at the table. I think one of the reasons why we haven't gotten as far and as fast as we need to is because if you just hold meetings at the government center in Fairfax Center and never reach out to the local provinces and to people of all economic means, you miss perspective about the urgency. And we lose the opportunity for having that knowledge become part of the common ground of innovative approaches to solving the issue.
Right.
NAACP can do this in a terrific way and build a common community that's going to drive us forward.
And meet people where they are. I think that's the most important. And Kofi, as we wrap up this segment, can you tell people how they can find out more about the Fairfax chapter of NAACP?
Sure. So you visit our website, fairfaxnaacp.org, and or email me, president@fairfaxcountynaacp.org, and we'll put you in touch with Jerry or Mary Patton. And if you want to get involved with the committee, it's a brand new committee, but they're doing a lot of great work.
That's great. And I will say, while the NAACP is leading on this issue, they are leading on many issues. So I urge you to go to their website. Thank you for joining us.